are starting with some of the short questions regarding sexual reproduction in flowering plants. You see, first number question is coming. Flowers are highly modified. Here are 4 options given: A root, B shoot, C stem, and D leaves. And what we know about the flowers? That flowers are highly modified shoot bearing nodes and modified floral leaves, which are meant essentially for sexual reproduction in plants. Okay, so the answer will be B. Answer will be B, that is shoot. Okay, then it is coming question number 2. A typical flower has dash different kinds of hole. Number A 2, number B 3, number C 4, and D 5. So what we know about this one? A typical flower has 4 different kinds of hole. These are calyx, that is a green leafy sepals, corolla, that is bright colored petals, and androecium, that is male reproductive organ, and gynoecium is the female reproductive organ. So answer will be C 4. Number 3. Anther is typically A. tetrasporangiate, B. bisporangiate, C. trisporangiate, D. monosporangiate. What we know about this one? That typically angiospermic anther is bilobed, which is connected by connective and diathecious. That is, each lobe has 2 theca. The bilobe structure of the anther is tetrasporangiate, that is having 4 sporangia. In transverse section, it appears as 4-sided tetragonal structure consisting of 2 microsporangia in each lobe. So the answer will be 3A. Number 4. The functions of tapetum is to A. produce ubised bodies, number B. produce pollen grains, number C. provide nourishment to the developing pollen grains, number D. store and protect pollen grains. So what we know about this one? The tapetum is a layer of nutritive cells found within the sporangium, particularly within the anther of flowering plants. Its main function is to provide nutrition to the developing microscope, mother cells, and pollen grains. So the answer of question number 4 will be C. Number 5. Microsporogenesis occurs A. on margins of leaves, B. inside the ovule, C. inside the anther, D. in essential floral organs. So what we know about this one? That microsporogenesis is the process of formation of microspores or pollen grains from a pollen mother cell through meiosis is microsporogenesis. Each cell of microsporogenous tissue serve as microspore mother cell. These microspore mother cells undergo meiosis and form microspore tetrad and become haploid microspores or pollen grains. As anthers mature, microspores of the tetrad separate from each other and develops into pollen grains. Each microsporangium contains numerous pollen grains which are released after the dehiscence of the anther wall. So the answer of 5 will be C. Number D. Exine of pollen grains is formed of A. callose, B. pectocellulose, C. lignocellulose, D. sporospollenin. So what is number 6? Exine. What we know about this one? Exine is tough, cutanized layer, often with spinous outgrowth but sometimes smooth. Exine is composed of sporopollenin, which is resistant to physical and biological decomposition. It protects the pollens from environmental extremes. So the question number 6, it will be D. Number 7. One of the most resistant known biological material is A. lignin, B. hemicellulose, C. sporospollenin, and D. lignocellulose. So what we know is this one? Sporopollenin is the tough resistant biopolymer that coats the outer walls of pollen grain spores and related microorganisms. It is considered the most resistant organic material known and accounts for the morphology and microstructure and for geological preservation of polymorphs. Water polymorphs and organic microfossils. So the answer of question number 7 will be C. D. Pollen grains is liberated at A. 1 cell stage, B. 2 cell stage, C. 3 cell stage, and D. 2 or 3 cell stage. So what we know about this one? Pollen grains is liberated at 2 or 3 cell stage. If pollen grains is released at the 2 cell stage, that is vegetative and generative cell, then generative cell divides meiotically to produce 2 male gametes. But when pollen grains are released at 3 cell stage, then 2 male gametes are already present. So the answer number 8 will be D. Question number 9. Pollen grain can be stored in liquid nitrogen at A. 70 degrees Celsius, B. 100 degrees Celsius, C. minus 196 degrees Celsius, D. 0 degrees Celsius. So what we know about this one? Pollen grains can be stored in liquid nitrogen minus 196 degrees Celsius to retain their viability for longer duration of time. Such stored pollen can be used as pollen banks similar to seed banks in crop breeding programs. So the question number 9 will be C. Number 10. Ovule is A. Megasporangium, B. Megasporophyll, C. Integumented megasporangium, and D. Rolled megasporophyll. So what we know about 10? Ovule is a part of the ovary of seed plants that contains a female germ cell and after fertilization becomes a seed. An ovule consists of a megasporangium surrounded by 1 or 2 layers of tissue called integuments. The microsporangium produces spores that develop into megametophytes. These megametophytes remain within the tissues of the ovule and produce 1 or more egg cells. So the question number 10 will be A. Now 11. 11 what is coming? Ovules are attached to a parenchymatous cushion called A. nucellus, B. obturator, C. conducting tissue, D. placenta. So what we know about this one? Placenta is the surface of the carpel to which the ovules, that is the potential seeds, are attached. The placenta is usually located in a region corresponding somewhat to the margins of a leaf, but is actually submarginal in position. So the answer number 11 will be D. 12. The point at which funiculus touches the ovule is A. chalaza, B. hilum, C. rache, and D. endothelium. So what we know about this question? The point at which funiculus touches the ovule is called hilum. Thus hilum represents the junction between the ovule and the funiculus. So 12, the answer will be B. 13. Egg apparatus consists of A. egg cell and antipodal cells, B. egg cells and central cell, C. egg cell and 2 synergies, D. egg cell and 1 synergies. What we know about this one? Egg apparatus consists of 2 synergies and 1 egg cell lying at the micropolar, and the synergies bear prominent structure called filiform apparatus, which are finger-like projections. Synergies guide the path of pollen tube towards the egg, help in obtaining nourishment from the outer nucellus cells, and also function as shock absorbers during the penetration of pollen tube into the embryo sac. Cytoplasm of egg is inactive, rich in ribosomes, and contain plastids. So answer number 13 will be C. 14. The most common type of ovule is A. orthotropous, B. hemitropous, C. anatropous, and D. camelotropous. So 14, what we know about this one? In anatropous ovule, the body of the ovule is completely turned at 180-degree angle due to unilateral growth of funiculus, so it is also called inverted ovule. The chalaza and micropyle lie in straight line. The hilum and micropyle lie side by side, very close to each other. This type of ovule is found in 80% families of angiosperm, but not in Capsella. In this ovule, micropyle is facing downward condition. This is the most common type of ovule, so that it is considered as a typical ovule of angiosperm. So answer number 14 will be C. 15. Filiform apparatus is found in A. synergids, B. anther cells, C. secondary nucleus, D. egg cells. So what we know about this one? Synergids bear prominent structure called phylum of apparatus, which are finger-like projections. This apparatus is present in upper part of each synergies. This apparatus is useful for the absorption and transportation of materials from the nucellus to the embryo sac. So answer number 15 will be A. 16. Polygonum type of embryo sac, that is typical female gametophyte of angiosperm, is A. 7-celled 7-nucleate, B. 7-celled 8-nucleate, C. 8-celled 7-nucleate, and D. 8-celled 8-nucleate. So what we know about this one, I have already told you when I was teaching you that autogamy and geitonogamy are types of cell pollination. In geitonogamy is the fertilized of a flower by pollen from anther flower on the same or a genetically identical plant. It occurs between bisexual flowers or unisexual flowers of the same plant, while autogamy is a kind of pollination in which pollen from the anthers of flowers are transferred to the stigma of the same flower. So answer of, sorry, I have gone into this question number 17. I was explaining the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma actually. So it will be question number 16. What is coming? You see again, polygonum type of embryo sac, typically female gametophyte of angiosperm, A. 7-celled 7-nucleate, B. 7-celled 8-nucleate, C. 8-celled 7-nucleate, and D. 8-celled 8-nucleate. So what we know, a typical mature embryo sac of angiosperm is 7-celled 8-nucleate, that is 3 antipodal cells, 3 egg apparatus cells, and 1 central cells, that is 2 polar nuclei. So question number 16, it will be B. 17. Transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of another flower of the same plant is called. So what will be the answer? Just right now I have explained you, autogamy and geitonogamy are types of cell pollination. Geitonogamy is the fertilization of a flower by pollen from another flower on the same or a genetically identical plant. It occurs between bisexual flowers or unisexual flowers of the same plant, while autogamy is a kind of pollination in which the pollen from the anthers of a flowers are transferred to the stigma of the same flower. The question number 17 will be A. 18. Clistogamous flowers are A. Wind pollinated, B. Self pollinated, C. Cross pollinated, D. Insect pollinated. So what we know, in some plants bisexual flowers are formed which never open throughout the life. Such flowers are called clistogamous flowers such as Camelina viola. So only self pollination takes place in these plants. Self pollination is a rule in clistogamous flowers. So question number 18 will be B. 19. Both chasmogamous and clistogamous flowers present in A. Helianthus, B. Lomellinia, C. Rosa, and D. Gossypium. So what will be our answer of question number 18? That is, in some plants bisexual flowers are formed which never open throughout the life. Such flowers are called clistogamous flowers such as Camelina viola. So only self pollination takes place in this plant. Self pollination is a rule in clistogamous flower. So question number 18 will be B. Oh, already I have told it. Both chasmogamous and clistogamous flowers are present in, here it is only the name it has been asked. So question, it is Lomellina. 20. Pollination by water occurs in, pollination by water occurs in, it is question number 20. What we know about this one, pollination by water called hydrophily occurs in Vallisneria. In Vallisneria, that is ribbonweed, female flower reaches on the surface of water and assumes horizontal position due to elongation of its stalk. Male flowers or male pollen grains are released onto the surface of water. They are carried passively by water currents and some of which eventually reach to the stigma. So question number 20, it will be A. 21. Bees are important to agriculture as they A. produce wax, B. perform pollination, C. prevent pollination, D. produce honey. So the question number 21. What we know about these are, bees are important to agriculture as they perform pollination. Bees are responsible for over 80% of all pollination done by insects. Plants pollinated by insects are colorful with fragrance and abundant nectar which attracts insects. So question number 21, it will be B. Okay. Question number 22. Vegetative fertilization involves fusion of A. two polar nuclei, B. a male gametes and a synergids, C. A male gamete and antipodal cell. D. Nucleus of a male gamete and secondary nucleus. So question number 22, what we know about this one? The fusion of male and female gametes is called fertilization. Fertilization in angiosperm involves two nuclear fusions, or one between one of the male gametes and the egg, and the other between the second male gamete and the secondary nucleus of the polar nuclear. Have you followed when I was teaching you? Fertilization involves two nuclear fusions, one between one of the male gametes and the egg, and other between the second male gametes and the secondary nucleus of the polar nuclei. The first of this fusion is called the generative fertilization or syngamy, which leads to the formation of a zygote, and second known as vegetative fertilization, which leads to the formation of a triploid primary endosperm nucleus. So question number 22, it will be D. 23. During double fertilization in plants, one sperm fuses with the egg cell and other sperm fuses with the, so just right now this was the regarding double fertilization. So 23, it will be during double fertilization in plants, one sperm fuses with the egg cell and other sperm fuses with the two polar nucleus of the central cell. One sperm fuses with the egg cell and the other two sperm fuses with the two polar nucleus of the central cell to produce triploid primary endosperm cell, that is trion. Since the latter involves fusion of the three haploid nucleus, therefore it is called triple fusion. So what is coming in 23? It is coming as B. 24. Endosperm is generally A. diploid, B. triploid, C. haploid and T. polyploid. So 24, what we know about this one? Endosperm is produced inside the seeds of most flowering plants around the time of fertilization. It is formed when the two sperm nuclei inside a pollen grain reach the interior of a, it is formed when the two sperm nuclei inside a pollen grain reach the interior of the embryo sac or female gametophyte. One sperm nucleus fertilizes with the egg, forming a zygote. One sperm nucleus fertilizes with the egg, resulting the zygote, and while the other sperm nucleus fuses usually with the two polar nuclei at the center of the embryo sac. Okay, followed what I am saying? One of the sperm cell fuses with the egg, one sperm nucleus fertilizes with the egg to form the zygote, while the other sperm nucleus fuses with the two polar nuclei to give the central embryo sac. Two polar nuclei to give the center of the embryo sac, forming a primary endosperm cell. Okay, so the answer of 24, it will be B. 25. Milky water of green coconut is A. liquid chalaza, B. liquid nucellus, C. liquid endosperm, D. liquid female gametophyte. So coconut water is a clear liquid inside young green coconuts. Milky water of green coconut is called the liquid endosperm. So 25, it will be C. Okay. 26. Scutellum is present in the embryo of A. P, B. Ranunculus, C. Triticum, D. None of these. So 26, it is a nature embryo in monocotyledonous, has a single cotyledon, is called scutellum, and it is found in triticum. So answer will be 26 is C. 27. Perisperm is A. Degenerate part of synergids, B. peripheral part of endosperm, C. degenerate part of secondary nucleus, D. remnant of nucellus. So 27, what is coming? In most of the angiosperm, entire part of the nucellus is utilized by developing embryo sac, but in some of the angiosperm, some part of the nucellus remain inside the ovules. That part of the nucellus present inside the seed in the form of a thin layer is known as perisperm. So 27, it is coming as D. 28. False fruit are found in A. apple and pear, B. strawberry, C. cashew nut, and D. all of these. So false fruits are those in which additional to ovary other floral parts also contributes for this development is called false fruit. Example, apple, pear, strawberry and cashew nut. So 28 it is coming D, all of these. Number 29, seeds are adaptively important because A, they maintain dormancy, B, they protect young plants during vulnerable stages, C, they store food for young plants and facilitate dispersal, D, all of the above. So 29, what we will know about this one? Seeds can remain dormant for many years and germinate on return of favorable conditions. Reproductive process is not dependent on water. Seeds have sufficient food reserves to initiate embryo development and seedling development till the photosynthesis process is initiated. Hard seed coat also protects the embryo from environmental extremes. Since seeds are the product of sexual reproduction, it promotes diversity. Seeds have better adaptive strategies for dispersal to new habitats and help the species to colonize in other areas. So, what is coming in 29? D. 30. The seed of in which endosperm is used by embryo is called dash seed. A. Single. B. Albuminous. C. Endospermic. D. Non-endospermic. So, what is coming in 30? Seeds which do not have an endosperm at maturity are called non-endospermic or X-albuminous seeds. The endospermic tissue are absorbed during the development of embryo. The absorbed food materials from the endosperm is stored in cotyledons. That is why they become so large and fleshy. That example capsula and all dicotyledons. But castor seed is endospermic. So, question number 30 it is coming D. 31. Apomixis is the development of plants in darkness, development of plants without fusion of gametes. Number C, inability to perceive stimulus for flowering. D, effect of low temperature on plant growth. So 31, what is coming? Apomixis is the production of seeds without fertilization. The term apomixis was given by Winker in 1908. There are several ways of development of apomictic seeds. In some species, the diploid egg cell is formed without reduction division and develops into the embryo without fertilization. In some species, the nucellar cells surrounding the embryo sac start dividing, protrude into the embryo sac and develop its embryos. Some apomictic plants are citrus, cactaceae, grasses, parthenium, etc. So, what is coming in 31? It is B. 31 it is coming B. Number 32, nucellar polyembryo is reported in species of. So, polyembryony is the state of occurrence of more than one embryo in a seed. It was observed by Leeuwenhoek in citrus, that is orange seed. Polyembryony is commonly found in gymnosperm, but it is also found in some of the angiospermic plants such as orange, lemon, nicotiana, etc. So, 32 it is coming D. 33. Which of the following statement is correct for the pollen tube? It shows chemotactic movement. B. It shows only tube growth. It is composed of 3 non-cellular zones. D. It shows radial cytoplasmic streaming. So, 33 what is coming? The movement of pollen tube towards the embryo sac through style is chemotactic as it secretes pectinase and other hydrolytic enzymes to create a passage for its entry into the style. So, 33 it is coming A. 34. Which of the following statement is incorrect about emasculation? A. During emasculation process stigma is removed. B. Emasculation flowers are backed in order to prevent self-pollination. C. Emasculation is the removal of stamens before the maturation of selected bisexual flowers. D. It is one of the steps for artificial hybridization. So, 34 what we know? Emasculation is the removal of anthers from the flower bud before the anther dehisces in bisexual flowers. So, 34 it is coming A. 34 it is coming A. 35. In over 60% of angiosperm, pollen grains are shed at cell 2 cell stage. In the remaining species, the generative cell divides mitotically to give rise to the 2 male gametes before the pollen grains are shed. So, 35. Here the options are which of the following statements are incorrect. So, when pollen is shed at 2 cell stage, double fertilization does not take place. Vegetative cell is larger than generative cell and pollen grains in some plants remain visible for months, and D. Intine is made of cellulose and pectin. So, 35 35, what we know about this one? In over 60% of angiosperm, pollen grains are shed at 2-cell stage. In the remaining species, the generative cell divides mitotically to give rise to 2 male gametes before the pollen grains are shed, that is 3-cell stage. So, it is 35, it is coming A. 36. Which of the following statements about sporopollenin is incorrect? A. Exine is made up of sporopollenin. Sporopollenin is one of the resistant organic materials. Exine has apparatus called germ pores where sporopollenin is present. Sporopollenin can withstand high temperature and strong acid. 36. What we know that exine has apertures which are called germ pores if rounded, or germinal furrows if elongated. These are the areas where sporopollenin is absent. So 36 is coming 36C. 37. Which of the following events takes place after double fertilization? A. The pollen grain germinate on the stigma. B. The pollen tubes enter the embryo sac. C. 2 male gametes are discharged into the embryo sac. And D. The pen, that is a primary endosperm nucleus, develops into endosperm. So 37, what we know about this one? Double fertilization forms a diploid zygote nucleus and a triploid primary endosperm nucleus, that is pen. After that, the two products of double fertilization, that is zygote and pen, developed into embryo and endosperm respectively. So 37, it is coming D. Okay. 38. Which of the following statement is correct? A. Sporogenous tissue is haploid. B. Endothecium produces the microspore. C. Tapetum nourishes the developing pollen. D. Hard outer layer of pollen is called the intine. So what we know about D? That is, the sporogenous tissue is always diploid. Endothecium is second layer of anther wall and perform the function of protection and help in dehiscence of anther to release the pollen. Hard outer layer of pollen is called the exine, but tapetum always nourishes the developing pollen. So 38, it is coming C. 39. Which of the following statement is correct? 39. What is this? That is A. Geitonogamy involves the pollens and the stigma of flowers of different plants. Clistogamous flowers are always autogamous. Xenogamy occurs only by wind pollination. D. Chasmogamous flowers do not open at all. So 39, what we know about this one? That clistogamous flowers do not expose their reproductive parts. Anthers and stigma lie in close to each other. Pure autogamy occurs since there is no chance of cross pollination. Clistogamy is the most efficient floral adaptation for promoting cell pollination. Okay, so 39, it is coming as B. Question number 40. Which of the following statements is or are correct about the self incompatibility? A. It is a device to prevent inbreeding. 2. It provides a biochemical block to cell fertilization. 3. It ensures cross fertilization. 4. It is governed by pollen pistil interaction. Okay. And 5. It is governed by series of multiple alleles. 6. It prevents cell pollination, that is from the same flower to other flowers of the same plant, from fertilization the ovules by inhibiting pollen germination or pollen tube growth in the pistil. So option A is 1, 2 and 3. B is 1, 4 and 5, C is all of the above and D is none of the above. So what we know? All the statements are correct about self incompatibility. Self incompatibility is a general name for several genetic mechanisms in angiosperm which prevent self-fertilization and thus encourage outcrossing and allogamy. In plants with self-incompatibility, when a pollen grain produced in a plant reaches the stigma of the same plant or another plant with a similar genotype, the process of pollen germination, pollen tube growth, ovule fertilization and embryo development is halted at one of its stages and consequently no seeds are produced. So question number 40, the right answer will be C, all of the above. So the students, don't forget to subscribe my channel. You will get more question and answer regarding each and every chapter. From next day onwards we will start the chapter number 3, that is human reproduction. Okay, so up till these today, if you have any confusion, write in my comment box, but don't forget to subscribe my channel. So stay healthy and fit. So goodbye. Thank you.